Hi everyone, I'm Kristen. Welcome and welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing a non-spoiler review for perhaps one of my new favorite books from this year, and that is Godkiller by Hannah Kaner. I'm definitely kicking myself for not reading this book earlier. It is a book that I've had on my eye on a casual TBR for since it came out last year, I guess. And for whatever reason, it was one that I took a while to put at the library, on hold at the library, and even hit postpone several times. But in this fall, I was just kind of feeling ready for it, and my gosh, this has been such a good read. I'm not really one to share specific ratings, but I would say this one feels a lot more like an emotional 5-star read than like a technically objective 5-star read, perhaps. But regardless, it is definitely, I think, one of the favorite things that I have picked up so far this year, with really very little time left in the year overall. I'm going to share some of the things that I think this book did really well. I'm going to share some of the things that I think or wish perhaps could have been better or a little bit different. And I hope overall this book helps you to decide whether or not you're going to pick it up or not pick it up, or perhaps you really just read it and you're curious to see what other people thought of it. In this book, we are following 4 different perspectives. I would say our main character, our titular character, Kissin, who is the god killer in question here. In this world, there are gods of everything, like from fire and this particular woods to a local stream to lost shoes or finding things, gods of travel, like all of the things. And every god like kind of gets more power by the act of, or through the act of worship and like sacrifices and things like that, which is a concept that I have definitely seen before. I am blanking on the specific book, but so if I remember it, I'll put it up. Anyway, our main character, Kissin, is a god killer. You might think, why are we killing the gods? So the act of worship and faith in these various gods has actually been banned within the particular country that we are focusing in on this book. And so Kissin's job is to be paid by like local counties and lords, etc., to take care of problematic gods in their region, because the average layperson still would prefer to have their right to their own faith, etc. We definitely get into some conversations of that, but we're getting off topic already. So Kissin is a god killer. We also follow Elo, or Elogast, who is a retired knight who used to be very close to the now king of this country, and he, after the war a few years ago, retired and has become a baker in a small town. Then we follow Anara, I think that was her like nickname sort of, and she is a daughter of a noble lady who nobody knows exists for secret, unknown reasons. And she has somehow been accidentally sort of bound to this small little, almost animal companion type god, Skedagat, of white lies. And so Kissin is on a journey to try to help Anara and Skedagat sort of like become unentangled from each other. And on this journey, their path gets wound up with Elo's, who, even though he is retired, he is asked to do a particular favor for his king. There are going to be some really common elements or things that you have seen before. As I already mentioned, the like act of worship, giving the gods different magics or like giving them more power, is definitely something that we've seen before. Kissin is going to be that like troubled, solo, kind of badass warrior type, like can take care of herself with a troubled past, but like secretly is a little bit soft inside, kind of a main character. You've seen this character before. Same with Elo, like old retired knight who got out of the biz and is being like drawn back in for reasons, and like a mysterious little girl where something's going on, like not quite a chosen one, but there's definitely some elements of that. Like all of these people are familiar characters that you have seen before. But what I think made this book not feel like just everything else you've ever seen before is that the author did an amazing job of making me really, really care about what happened and really care about these characters. In a book where that isn't the case, and it's something that seems really familiar and done before, it just kind of feels done before, and it feels a little bit annoying and not really hooks you in. But in such a short space, the author did an amazing job of making me care about Kissin, about Elo, about Anara, and even Skedagat, this little god of white lies. With that being said, let's jump in like more specifically here into the things that I think really worked for me, or that I think were done really, really well. So the characters overall, I thought were done really well. I thought that the author did an amazing job of making you care about these characters in such a short period of time, as well as a short period of time splitting the book between 4 perspectives. This is an example of a found family done really well, specifically there are not too many people, or there are, let's say, like the right amount of people per page time. One of my biggest pet peeves when you sell me on a found family book is if the found family is too large to have enough time caring about each unit of this found family. An example of this would perhaps be Ray Bear, where it's like 12 plus people, I think, that's like a found family. Another one would be This Vicious Grace, where I felt like the found family in question was too large for the amount of time that we had to spend developing that found family. Or even more recently, I read The Sky on Fire, and that also I feel like had too many people for the amount of time that we had, and we definitely focused more on some people compared to others. There is sort of like an extended, like another found family in it, where Kissin has some people from her past, like her pre-existing found family, and I would say that maybe we didn't get enough time with that, but it also was like not really the priority. We were only with those people for a very short window of time, and the development of like why Kissin and Elogast and Inara and Skedakat, like them creating their own little found family unit, felt more important to the book and to me, and I think that that focus was very effective. I think the plotting was pretty tight in this book. There is some time with other side characters that one could argue was not completely necessary for this book. My follow-up to that would be that I suspect that those side characters are going to become relevant in sequels in this book. There's definitely another book out, and I believe this is going to be a trilogy. So even though not every single side character mentioned came to full circle in terms of their relevance for this book, I think that they will. That's my guess. But I otherwise felt like the plotting was pretty tight. I felt like I can't really think of that many scenes, or really any off the top of my head, where I felt like they didn't contribute to something specific, whether that was, you know, developing the found family, explaining the world, like building the world building, progressing the plot, developing the relationships that were involved, all of the things. I feel like every scene and every conversation played a role in this book. Some of it was perhaps some not terribly heavy-handed, but definitely very obvious real-world politics, you could say, and I have seen that in other reviewers' feedback as well. But generally, I feel like everything that happened and that was present in the book was there for a reason. It is a very short book. Now, that isn't to say that that is perfect, and would I have more? Yes, let's talk about that in the cons. But I think that it was rather tight plotting overall and a pretty quick pace. And with that being said, in terms of like the pacing, I actually feel like a lot of things happened for the length of this book. It didn't necessarily feel short. It was a really great audio experience. I listened to the audio in particular, and it was a really great audio listening experience. And it didn't feel like it ended and I was like, what? That's it? Would I take more? Yes. Did it feel like there was swaths of missing information? No. And overall, from beginning to end, like where we start off with all of the various things that happen along the way, I feel like we got a lot for the amount of time that we had in this book. Outside of the comments that I already made in terms of like my glowing perception of this found family unit, I also feel like the individual relationships that were touched on, the dynamic between sort of individual people within that found family unit was also really well done. I really liked the dynamic between Kissin and Elo. It didn't necessarily have to go as far as it did in this particular book, but I really appreciated that slightly untrustworthy, shared, we have to protect this child, but I don't know if, like, still suspicious of the other person, and then the growing trust that developed over the course of that book, and like the growing friendship overall. I just like really enjoyed that dynamic. I also enjoyed the dynamic between Inara and Kissin as well, and sort of how the innocence and naivety and the things that are happening in Inara's life are compounding that dynamic and progressing it perhaps further than you otherwise would between this random girl and this random lady. One thing that I dislike, again, with a book that's being sold to me as a found family is if there's no real reason for them to become a found family, and it's just that, like, hey, we're like sharing page time together, and by the end we have really strong family unit feelings towards each other. In this one, there were plot events and circumstances that developed and built this overall family protective, intense caring about each other feelings because of the experiences that they were going through, and not just because they were all there together for a while talking. Another great positive is that we do have physical disability rep. So our main character, Kissin, is actually an amputee, and having this be like not an own voices review of that, I thought that all of that was done really, really well. It was presented in a very factual way that didn't feel like there was any bias, pro or con, or any overall feeling about the fact that she was an amputee. Of course, there was an emotionality around like the very traumatic and tragic event where she lost her leg. And that is explicitly shown in the prologue. It had a very gripping prologue. Outside of that obvious trauma regarding the leg, it is something that is just a fact of Kissin's life, dealing with her prosthetic, and she has to deal with the wear and tear of it, the fixing of it. There's an element of like, how does it play into particular scenes, some more adult scenes, and how that is dealt with, I thought was just very smooth and very factual, which I think is very positive. It didn't feel weighted any particular way. Kissin is Kissin, and she has a prosthetic leg. And another one, not that I'm going to get into too much detail, there is definitely queer rep in this as well. Overall, I just really, really loved the characterization that went on in this. I really enjoyed the characters, and even though they were familiar, they also didn't necessarily feel fresh, like they weren't new takes on it. They were just really well done, and I appreciated that. Now we'll talk about some of the things that I think maybe like could have been done better or perhaps differently. I'm not sure why the book is so short. As to say, like, I don't know if there was a publishing, editing reason. I don't know if this was how it was pictured by the author herself. But overall, even though I feel like we had enough of all of the things, I also feel like I could have appreciated, and I definitely could have made do with 100 pages or more so. Sorry for change of lighting. My daughter woke up from her nap, so I had to wait a little bit and come back to this. So as I was saying, even though I was satisfied generally with the amount of world building that the author was able to do in the amount of time that she had, I still feel like another 100 pages or so could have made a significant difference in a more expansive, impactful world building, or like more expansive and impactful way to the world building, with really like not that significant of a difference in overall length of book. I still feel like, I think this book is around 350 words, something like that. So like an addition of 100 words really isn't going to make a big difference. It's not going to turn like a really small book into a chunker. It's just going to be a average, if even on the still smaller scale, length of an adult fantasy book, but I feel like could also give the author a lot more time to expand a little bit on some things that were missing. In particular, I feel like what happened with the God War 5 years ago was really not vague, but also really not clear. Both Kissin and Elo are veterans of that God War. Elo in particular definitely suffers PTSD from his experiences of that war. I just don't feel like the extent to which that event in the past, in the history, like it plays a pretty significant role in a lot of the motivations, a lot of the wounds that our main characters are dealing with, as well as just like the political scene right now that is very definitely at play with what's happening in this world. So I feel like a more clear explanation and more time going through some of the finer points of that event would personally help my understanding of what is going on currently a little bit better, as well as just like understanding that event. I would also really have appreciated more, I guess, time exploring and understanding the particular relationship that Elo has with the current king. The point is made that the two sort of came up together in training to become guards, as our king, the current king, was, you know, bottom of the line, like waiting line to rule. And so it is clear that they had more of that like brotherhood, camaraderie element. We do explore it in little pieces, and there is a pretty significant moment that happens during the war that we touch on. Overall, I just feel like the extent to which the relationship with the king impacts Elo's decision making throughout the book, as well as some things that he is considering and plans to do, etc. in later parts of the book. I feel like I would have wanted more time understanding or getting more of the history between them to make me care as much as Elo seemed to care. Also, that particular event that Elo is holding on to that plays a lot into his trauma, as well as why he's willing to do something that he intends to do at a certain part of the book. So there's a moment in the war where something happens and he feels to blame, and I just feel like that we could have used more time and more words around that particular incident. I feel like overall the character of the king is not on page enough, like not his physical presence, but even just like knowing him and talking about him. And without getting into spoilers, I will say like who the king is and his character and all of that like is significant to this book, and I think will become even more significant in the second book. And so I feel like we could have had more time understanding the king himself. It's definitely not the priority of this book, so that's why I think the book still really, really works on without it. But I think that that's something that we could have, again, gotten more of in an extra 100 pages that would have just made it feel like a little bit more filled in. I feel like that mostly sums up my main critiques for this book. I do really feel like an extra 100 pages could have given more time to make this book go from like an emotional 5-star and like probably closer to 4.5 to a technically 5-star, objectively 5-star book for me. While this book was technically classified as an adult fantasy scene, and in fact there is an on-page explicit scene and a very minor romantic subplot here, I think that a lot of readers, or some readers, might find that this feels a little bit more in the tone and vein of perhaps a new adult fantasy book. And I know that that is like so, it's one of those things, it's like, is it, isn't it? It's just like more of a feeling. I think that some readers will have that feeling, similar to perhaps like City of Brass, that was adult fantasy, wasn't young adult fantasy, but there's just like a little something that feels more like new adult, in that it's a very approachable world, more simple magic system at play here, and just like a certain je ne sais quoi sort of a quality. I think that if you subscribe to the fact that some books read like new adult, I think that you will understand what I mean, and I would perhaps put this book in that category as well. Overall, I obviously really, really enjoyed and thoroughly loved reading this book. I cannot wait to pick up the sequel, and I am definitely going to be checking out the third book when it comes out. I'm pretty sure that this was Hannah Kaner's debut novel, so I am definitely going to keep my eye on whatever they continue to write in the future, if this is what they can give us in a debut novel. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read this book and agree or disagree with what I said. I'd love to hear your take on it as well. If you haven't read the book and have decided based on what I said, either yay or nay, or why you've held off so far, I would be really curious to hear. I definitely wish that I had read this sooner to when it first caught my eye. And if you just want to let me know that you're here, you can leave a deer emoji in the comments. I'm going to link up a couple of my other videos that I think you might be interested in, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day. Bye.